Hello and welcome to today's video. So today we are looking at launching the kind of last bit of assignment work that we will do before the summer. And what we always do, and what we would have done with you guys properly during this time, is look at next year and prep for next year. So we would have had a little bit of time focusing on Blender and some bits and pieces on Unity, so we can get you used to using those programs. Now, what I would encourage all of you to do, whatever computer you've got, is to see if you can have a download of each of those, of Blender and of Unity, and see what you can come up with, and see what you can do. There's a tutorial on there already for the 2D Pong game for Unity, which you'll get used to the formatting and the different screens and menus and bits and pieces that you use in Unity. Chris and I are going to signpost and do some Blender tutorials for you over the next few weeks as well. There's also some on Chris's channel already, so you've got some bits and pieces on there. Please don't worry if you've got either a low spec computer or no computer at all. If you've got a low spec computer, then I encourage you just to have a go. Blender is actually quite a small program, but it's only when it comes to the rendering that it needs to have a bit of oomph behind the PC. Unity is similar as well, it needs a little bit more behind it, but I would encourage you to have a go. See if you can download them, see if you can install them, and if you can, the Pong game on Unity will not use any kind of memory in any shape or form. It's very, very simple. It's a 2D game. You're not using any big graphics or any big frame rates like that, and Blender, like I say, you'll be able to get used to Blender and do some of the tutorials. It will just be when you come to the final render that you might find that your machine chugs. If you haven't got access to a computer at all, then don't worry. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the prep and the development and the idea generation over the next few weeks, so you'll be able to do that. I think the stuff that I'm going to start today and we're going to go through over the next few weeks, 90% of it you can do as long as you've got access to maybe a word processor or pen and paper. That's all you need, and that's absolutely fine for submitting on this bit and piece, these bits and pieces. Don't worry too much that you haven't got access to some of the bigger software or access to a computer. There is one bit towards the end where we're going to look at a website that allows us to do a little bit of 3D modeling, so we can do some visualization before we get into Blender, but we'll come to that when we get there over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so first things first, what I want you to look at is, where are we? There we are. All right, so this document, and you've got a link to this document in the email, and I will put it in the description of the video as well, so you've got access to it wherever you are and however you're watching this or going through it. And I'm going to go through, there's 4 tasks that we're going to do over the next few weeks, and this is task 1, and like I say, this is looking at your understanding and your development of ideas and the process of putting together a 3D piece. What I would say, and I touched on it a little bit before, we're looking at Unit 40 and using that as a bit of a model, no pun intended, sorry, for the next few weeks that we're looking at. There's 3 units that we're going to work on internally next year: 3D modeling, 3D environments, and 3D animations. Okay, so you can see what the focus is for next year, and like I said before in a previous video, that there's one more external unit that we will do, an externally examined unit that we'll do next year as well. Okay, so that's where our focus is for the new year in September. Okay, however that might look. What we're going to do is we're going to use 3D modeling, Unit 40, as our guide and our basis for some of the prep work and some of the understanding that we're going to do with that, so that when we come back together in September we can hit the ground running. We will use a different scenario to assess you formally, but this seemed like a logical one and a good one to pick apart right now. So let's have a little look. So your scenario is just titled Lockdown Views, and what we're going to look at during the lockdown, we've all spent a long time in the same rooms. I've spent a lot of time in this office that I'm sitting in right now, and I'm sure you have, whether it's in your bedroom, whether you've got a study, whether it's kind of the dining room table, whatever it might be, in our rooms and in our homes. So what we want you to use is to use that space as a developmental piece for your understanding for this unit, okay, and look at how you can plan and develop ideas to create a 3D model. So we want you to choose some items from your rooms, and it could be your bedroom, it could be the room that you've been studying in, it could be the room that you've been watching TV in, it could be your garden. anywhere that you can have access to. So you should all have a space, hopefully in mind already while I'm talking, that maybe you can pick apart. And we're going to do that in a number of different ways. We're going to go through the planning stages so that you know what the expectation is when we come together in September. If you know that, then doing that part of it will hopefully be easier, and Chris and I can plough our energies into getting you up to speed with using the software as well when we've maybe got access to our PCs a little bit more. So we want you to plan and consider 5 to 6 different 3D models as we go through, and that sounds quite a lot, but actually once we get into it, you'll realise that it's not too bad at all. And we want you to be able to show some development through these pieces, and it might be that you're going to consider different parts of the same thing. And I've got an example down there of a PC setup. So monitor, desktop, keyboard, mouse, and headphones. You've got 5 things there, but they're all part of the same thing. Okay, so you might be able to design a really nice kind of situation and a scene within your 3D piece when we get to the kind of last bits of it, which may be a little thing that you look at over the summer. It may be one of the first tasks that we do in September when we actually design the final pieces. Okay, throughout this unit we are going to go through the following that's on this list. So initial ideas, looking at how you can start bringing things together, legal and ethical issues and what that might throw up when it's a 3D design that we're looking at, and we start looking at photorealistic imagery and things like that, and what issues that might throw up ethically and legally as well. Researching visual sources, so different ways that you can develop your inspiration and different ways that you can bring together imagery to support what you're doing. Developing your final ideas and looking at how you refine those first thoughts that you were putting together. Preparing your own reference images. We want you to be able to take photos and to take references and be able to pull from different sources as you put together your final 3D models. So you're considering a number of different areas as you're putting together your final piece. And lastly, we may not do this over this period, but looking at texture assets, and that's looking at different elements and different imagery that you can do to get the right feel for your model. So if it's something shiny and metallic, that you've got the right texture for that. If it's something organic and different in that way, that we can find the right textures for that, and looking at the differences between those. Okay, we might touch that more on that in September than in this little round. Okay, so task 1, and it's a slightly shorter deadline, which is why you're getting it today. I know you've still got your deadlines for the magazine stuff to do, but I'm just putting this out there so that you can hit the ground running a little bit with it after you've finished that and you've submitted that. All right, so first one in task 1, in fact both pieces in task 1 are fairly easy. What we want you to do is create a mind map of your space of the room that you are thinking of. Okay, and I'm going to show you what that should look like, so don't panic. You're going to have a nice clear example in front of you in a second. Okay, but you need to make sure that it's a comprehensive mind map. Okay, I don't want to see half a dozen words on a page. What I want to see is no white space on that page, and fill it and cram it full as much as possible of different items, different things that you can see around you in your space. So imagine if that's your bedroom, you might sit yourself in one place where you normally sit to do your work, and then just look around the room and do it section by section. Let me show you what I mean. So if we just jump to my overhead display, there we go, get my mouse out of the way. Right, so here's one I prepared earlier. Let's try and fit that on the page. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so don't worry that you can't read my writing. Many people tell me about that anyway. So, but you can get the idea of what we're looking at. So I'd use my office as the example, and I've got my desk up here. I've got a wardrobe which sits next to me on the right hand side, which has all my consoles and bits and pieces in. I've got a shelving unit behind me, which you can just see the unicorn sitting on top of, and I've got a shelving unit in front of me, which you can't see, which is where my printer sits. Okay, and then I've got some shelves which are all around me. So I kind of broke my room down into different sections like that, and that way I know that I can focus on each of those sections, and I can sit there and I can look at them and I can go through bit by bit what we're looking at. So looking at the res on this, let's pick a few that we can actually read. So let's look at the wardrobe. So the wardrobe is just to my right. in my office, and I've got different things. So I've got some plastic boxes that sit on top. I've got cardboard boxes from figures and bits and pieces that I saved that are sitting on there as well. I've got some oversized books. I've got some random Father's Day cards that are still there. I've got old laptops which don't work anymore, which I use to pick apart and kind of take the hard drives out of. PC peripherals, and I've got 360 with some controllers. I've got an N64 and a PS2, and this now sounds like I'm bragging, but it's just where they're all racked up, and I'm older than you lot, so I've kind of collected these over the years. My PS3, my PS4, my PS1, some box files that store all of our files, and a set of drawers. Okay, so you can see that that's quite comprehensive, and just from that I could go through and I could pick out the few items that I want for the next piece of the task straight from that. But I want you to make sure that you go through the whole room so that you've got a bit of research in front of you that shows that you've gone through and you've picked out and you've planned and you've looked at your scene, your room, your space, wherever it might be, as much as you possibly can. Okay, shelving unit behind me, I've done similar. So kind of drawer full of stationery. I've got some reading books and some novels on there. I've got some reference books on there. You can just see a little orange kind of PS4 controller next to the Unicorn there. I've got my kind of toys and figures and whatever that sit next to Boba Fett. So all manner of different bits and pieces done there, and I've done that for all those different areas. So what was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas around the room, and I've tried to colour code it as well as there. I mean, you can use highlighters, you can use different coloured pens. I've just got one of those 4 colour pens that I used and went through, and then these little bits in here are just some of the bits and pieces, some of the bigger stuff. So my desk is a big white table, and I've got a beanbag that I kind of put my feet up onto that are under the desk, and then I've got a second drawing desk just behind me. I've got a pinboard over there, some lights that are up on the shelf. Okay, so it's just some of the bits that may not have been in the actual space, but kind of between me and the space, if you like. So I've covered everything. Okay, that is your example. That's what I want to see from you. Hugely comprehensive. Try and get every single thing that you can see. I've got things like the bin that are on the floor. I've got kind of random books that are sitting on there. I've got the mug that was sitting on here when I wrote this up. Okay, so that's the first task, and you can see on the screen. Let's just jump back to a thing. Need to find my mouse. Sorry. So you can see, because I put it on there as well for outcomes. I've made it nice and clear for you. So a detailed mind map brainstorm, either by hand or digitally. So you can find one of the websites that you can use to do that digitally. If you prefer typing it up, that's absolutely fine. Okay, I've just done mine by hand because I found it easier. And equally, if you haven't got access to tech, you can do it by hand. It's absolutely fine. Take a snap of it on your phone, and then you can either submit it through that, or you can, if it's playing up or anything like that, then you can email it through to us. That's fine. All right, listing as many things as possible from your chosen space. Okay, leave no space clear. Try and fill out your page as best you can. I've still got some gaps on mine which I could fill out a little bit more, so I could maybe think about. I haven't put anything about the pictures that are up on my wall, which I could have done. Haven't really talked about the stuff that's hanging off the back of the door, which I could have done. So there's still a bit of room for me to improve. But if you've got something that's looking like this, that's as comprehensive as this, then you're on track and you're on target. Okay, that's what we're expecting. Okay, hopefully that's nice and clear. The second part of the task, let's go back to my second display, is at least 2 sketches for 10 items. So once you've done your mind map, what I want you to do is choose 10 items from your mind map, from your brainstorm. Okay, and that's completely up to you. Whatever you choose is fine. Make it appropriate, but whatever you choose is absolutely fine. So then you can start looking at how you can look at those objects a little bit more detail and start developing those and prepping those for the final piece, which is what we'll do is we'll take some of them and we'll turn them into a 3D model that you are going to create. So keep that in mind. Okay, I've got a little model of a Millennium Falcon from Star Wars that sits just in front of me, which you can't see because it's just above the camera. Okay, I probably wouldn't choose that because my skills in Blender aren't where they should be to be able to recreate the Millennium Falcon in Blender. All right, Chris on the other hand maybe, but you know, me no. But then I've got a stereo that sits right in front of me here, which my PC plugs into, which is a really great place to start because it's a box with a few dials on it. that's more my level at the moment. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're considering what models to do. Okay, what does that look like? Let's go back to my display. There we go. Okay, so these are literally just pencil sketches, so they're not going to show up wonderfully well on there, but just to give you a sense of what I'm expecting. So just some sketches of different ideas. So I've asked you to do at least 2 sketches for 10 items. So you should have a minimum of 20 images. Okay, and this is what we're looking for. Just a quick kind of overview and a sense of drawing them and sketching them in 3D. If you are not a drawer and that is not where your skill set kind of lies, then think really carefully about the imagery, that, the objects that you are choosing. Okay, there's my stereo, like I said. Okay, so all you need to do is draw a 3D box, which we can play around with, and then I've added some of the dials and some of the bits and pieces that kind of sit on it, okay, and trying to pick out some of that detail. I could use that really easily as I develop this through, and I add some reference images in as we go through these different tasks. I could use that really straight away. I can see kind of how I can use that to make a 3D image of it in Blender. Okay, and then I picked out a couple of things. I've got my mug and my headphones in there. I just kind of got one thing because I ran out of space because I was doing it on one page so that you guys could see it. Okay, the reason why I'm asking you to do 2 sketches is because I've got this view of my stereo, for instance, here, but you can't see the other side and we can't see the back of it. Okay, so if you can, and only if you can, I don't want you unplugging everything in your room and causing your parents and yourselves kind of heartache, but if you can, try and get different views of everything. That's where the 2 sketches of each item comes in, okay, so that you can get a slightly different view of it. Now I've actually got a monitor that sits on top of this stereo, so I'm kind of guessing what this looks like, but I can pretty much, I'll put it in there so I know what it looks like. All right, but this is what I mean. So we can have a little different view of this with the headphones, maybe kind of a side one, so we get this nice view of the can itself. But then I might flip it around so I've got it looking at me, so it's in the front, and I can see the headphones in a slightly different view. If I show you what I mean, if I can pull it through. So there you go. There's kind of my headphones. So I might do a view where it is a bit more like that, so I can see both of the earpieces on there. Okay. That's why we're asking you to do a couple of sketches, and they are just sketches. Okay, do your best, think about what your objects are and sketch them out. And again, you can do this on a bit of paper and then you can snap it, and if you've got the ability to, I would do a couple on each sheet, and then if you can, take a picture of it and drop it into a slideshow, into a PowerPoint, into Google Slides or something like that, so that you can collate them all together. Okay, if you haven't got access to that, then kind of an image at a time, and then take a snap as you do it, and you'll be well away. Okay, if you can just make sure when you're taking your pictures that you get quite a good shot, so you might need to get, so you've got some light to it, that you're not putting a shadow all over it. Okay, so just review your images before you send them across to us, so that we can make sure you get some nice imagery in there, so we can see how you're developing. Okay, so that's it. So that's what we want you to do for task 1. So you should have a nice detailed mind map, okay, of your space, and you can choose the space. It doesn't have to be kind of the office or where you study. It can be your front room, it can be your back garden, it can be your kitchen. I don't really give a monkeys. Okay, you choose. All right, whatever you think will work best, and wherever you've got maybe the most stuff that you can reference for your 3D images later on. Okay, once you've done your mind map, that's when you think about your 10 items. So you're going to choose 10 items for your mind map, and they can be from different sections of kind of wherever you choose. They don't have to be from the same bit. Just choose them from the room that you've done. All right, and then similar, not the same, similar to what I've done, I want you to do 10 with your 10 items, 2 sketches of each. Okay, so you've got 20 images, 20 sketches that you've done, and try and do, so remember what I said with the headphones, and you might have one view where I've got a bit of a focus on the earpiece here, and then you might have a second view where you do it face on, so you can see the whole piece. Okay, so 2 sketches minimum for each one. If you want to do a few more, then that's absolutely fine. Okay, if you're doing lots of sketching and drawing and bits and pieces, and that is your thing, then great, go for it. Okay, but 2 at a minimum. So with the mug, it might be kind of this. I mean, this is really quite shocking in terms of perspective, but there we go. So I might do that, but then I might spin it around so that I've got the mug coming off, the handle coming off at the side, so it's a different view. And like I said with the stereo, might turn it so I can maybe see the back, or I can see this other side that we can't see from that perspective. Okay, so you should have 20 images. So one mind map, 20 images. That's what we're asking. Deadline is slightly different because I want you to do this quite quickly, quick turnaround. So the end of play on Monday is the deadline for this. You've got it on the document that is going to be attached to this. Where's my second display? There it is. Whoop, there we go. All right, so Monday the 15th of June, please. End of the day as normal, and I will put a Moodle link out as well. I haven't quite got it ready. Like I say, if you're having issues getting it up to Moodle because you haven't got the tech, but you've got the pictures on your phone, then if you can work out a way of emailing me and Chris the work, then that's fine in this instance. Ideally on Moodle, because then it's all in one place and it's all together, and it's a 1,000 times easier for us. But if you're having issues connecting to Moodle, then don't worry too much. Okay, you can email it through, but Moodle as a first port of call, please. Okay, so that's your task. That's what we're wanting you to do, and we're going to go through and look at different aspects of 3D modelling and prepping for 3D modelling over the next few weeks. And if we get there, we'll set you up so that maybe you can have a go at creating your 3D models either just towards the end of a term or maybe over the summer holidays. Okay, so that's where we're heading. So make sure you all submit something, please. You've all got the chance and the ability to do this. There is kind of no tech for this task needed if you don't want to. Equally, if you want to do your mind map on a digital platform, you can. If you want to put your sketches into a PowerPoint, you can. But if you can't and you're only taking snaps on your phone, that's absolutely fine. So 100% in terms of submissions, please make sure you've got it there for Monday the 15th. So slightly shorter turnaround time on this, but you know, what else are you going to do? You've got loads of time. Okay, any questions, then email them through to me and I will answer them and get back to you as soon as I can. Other than that, happy mind mapping, happy drawing, and we will see what you come up with.